Faffing, defined by the Urban Dictionary as to aimlessly waste time doing useless tasks. Example, stop faffing around and come to bed.
Hello, and welcome to Faffing with Friends. My name is Joe, and this is Lawrence.
Hello there.
And this is Avilo.
How do you do?
So, lads, the vaccine. Tell me.
Tell you how I feel about it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a very timely discussion considering the entire country is about to go into another lockdown and Christmas is about to turn into the worst Christmas we've had in our entire time here, I think.
That is quite the depressing thought, but, I don't think it's all doom and gloom, to be honest. I think that we're on the right track, and I am just welcoming 2021 because I genuinely feel like this year has been trash, everyone's depressed. I want this vaccine to get to me as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not to forget that there's also now 2 approved vaccines, not just the Pfizer, which is what we've mostly read about lately, but the Moderna one as well that is approved in the US. So we're probably going to get them both rolling out globally and more doses overall and probably get back to normal just a bit quicker.
That's right. So as soon as we get the vaccines, which I'm so glad about, this has been a very odd year for all of us. I've actually not been out more than 5 times, I think, in the last 9 months. So I'd love to get vaccinated and out there as soon as possible.
See, that is crazy to me. Even with all the lockdowns and stuff, I go out like on walks and stuff, and I go out enough not to go fully fever cabin, crazy, but I can't imagine having stayed in that much.
I actually did get invited to a party last night, to which I did say no, because, I know that people are all safe, but I do feel like it's still too early for people to be socializing in such big things. And, the vaccine is given to adults and adolescents from 16 years on. And I do think that us young people, we will get it probably by like June, July of next year because we're not the priority group. But yeah, I still think it's too early to be going out and socializing and let alone having parties and gigs and stuff like that. Ah, gigs. How I miss live
Yeah,
music.
I know. I mean, I miss being able to do anything. I haven't seen most of you in person in 5 months. It's been ages.
Yeah, this should be a lesson to go out with us more when we invite you.
Listen, I always go out. You just don't show up. Remember, we're 2 sides of the same coin.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, and I think I haven't seen you since January, so it's been even longer.
Yeah.
Although cabin fever hasn't really gotten to me yet. However, it might do.
I mean, you say that, but you've been having memory problems lately.
I have been having memory problems, which is really scary. And also my sleep schedule has been all over the place. I've not had a proper sleep.
You're usually awake when I'm asleep, and you're usually asleep when I'm awake, which has made recording this very fun because we have to pick hours that work for all of us.
That's right.
Speaking of meeting up with people, little fun fact for all you listeners out there: me and Joe have never actually met in person.
We have never met, no.
So
yeah, isn't that mind blowing? We went to the same uni for 3 years, and you two never saw each other in person.
So after lockdown ends, that's gonna be. Stay tuned for the Joe meets a Viola for real episode.
It's going to be a true When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, it's going to be such an exciting time in the world when 2 friends that make a podcast finally meet.
Right.
I don't get the joke, but it's okay. We move. Anyways, vaccine. We're off topic. Vaccine. Get back on topic.
I mean, what's there to say? We finally can go out soon without being worried about putting other people's lives in danger. I think that's a big point for all of us. But one of the reasons I don't like going out mainly is because I don't want to get other people killed. It's not that I'm just afraid of my, own health.
Exactly.
I know there's people I live with, my parents, so on and so forth, that I could be giving COVID to, and now that if they get vaccinated, which they should because they're more at risk, I won't have to worry as much.
And also, when you do go out, you take precautions like wearing a mask and keeping distance, which, to be honest, a lot of people, when I've gone out in the past, haven't been doing, even, when they should be.
And I mean, it's extra difficult in London because we are like sardines. Even if I wear a mask, keeping a distance is pretty much impossible if I have to use public transport.
So we talked about how the vaccine is mainly for people over 16 years, right? So how do you guys think that that's going to impact the education system? Because not going to lie, right now the biggest issues and this is coming from Greenwich because my dad works in Greenwich, and Greenwich is one of the worst hit areas because of schools. And
well, see, here's the problem with schools, right? Like, yeah, of course, the kids are never as at risk, right?
No.
Until the vaccine rolls out to teachers and the people in charge of running those schools, we still can't exactly get it all back on track, can we? Because they're the ones that were at risk to begin with, them and the parents and the grandparents, etc.
Yeah.
That's right, and I think that's why they're staggering the return of secondary school students and as well as uni students back in January, and they're also introducing testing for secondary school children. And that's great for my family, because my brother's in year 11, and he's had a very hard time with the vaccine and with his education. So hopefully, if they can get measures in to give him assurance, give him some hope that he won't go there and contract it or get it and then pass it on to other people, then he'll have an easier time with it. And I assume a lot of people are in that boat.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of people. You go first, Milo.
Sorry, man. So naturally, you guys know that like schools are just like petri dishes for like all type of like viruses and stuff like that. So let's say we do get the virus under control, like it's no longer in massive circulation, but children who rarely show symptoms, they're still transferring it to each other. So
right. Like we do need to, obviously vaccination will roll out for younger people and younger sooner or later, but obviously they have to prioritize.
Yeah, but
because those kids won't
only
die
for 16 years old. Like what happens to secondary schools?
Well, no, obviously that restriction goes lower after those people get it. The current problem is just dosages. There's not enough to go around.
Right.
Because the two currently approved vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, they're produced in the US, yes? And they have to be sold to every other country, and every other country is probably gunning to buy as much of it as they possibly can. So, what I think the first time in the UK we got like 800,000 doses in our first ever like shipment of Pfizer ones. So, that's what, 64 million people in the country?
Hell yeah.
We can't really rush it. It's just impossible. And talking about schools, on my like daily walk that I go on these days to try and not go crazy, I walk by a kindergarten and you can see their playground and just none of the kids have masks, and it's terrifying because you have to like move away from the fence because those kids are like blah blah blah, blah all over the place.
Right.
So let's talk about the big elephant in the room. This amazing feat which we have. We have developed a vaccine incredibly quickly. Like this whole thing started in let's say January 2020.
I think we can say it got developed in a year.
Yeah, it got developed in a year. So, there are some people's concerns that, this is like, they're one of the fastest vaccines in history. So, how come we haven't found the cure for cancer yet? So,
well, it's funny you mentioned that, because the two husband and wife that were working on the Pfizer vaccine, incidentally, were trying to work on a cure for cancer.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Just before, this all broke out, and they decided to focus on creating a vaccine for COVID. And the reason, I guess, my opinion anyway, that it's taken so quickly to develop one is because it's so urgent. Like literally the whole world had to halt.
Yeah, I can actually add to that. I remember there's a Cambridge professor, a lecturer, and a NHS doctor who posted like a thread on Twitter earlier, months ago, I think, November-ish. I think his name was Mark Toshner. And he mentioned how the reason this got done as quickly as it got done was because there wasn't the whole process of, when you develop medicine, usually you are submitting and resubmitting to different company after different company to try and get the funding. But because this was a worldwide threat that is affecting said businesses, and everyone, governments included, want it taken care of, there likely wasn't as much of an issue getting funding for any of these like more possibly quick vaccines that can get made easily, if only usually there was the kind of backup from the government and companies that they're finding now.
And naturally, just like with every vaccine, there tends to be some minor side effects, some minor disruptions like tiredness, headache, maybe possible fever. I do actually I've only ever had the flu jab once as a kid, and I actually ended up being the sickest I've ever been in that particular year. But no correlation. I'm not saying anything. But
I mean, no, obviously when you get injected with a dormant version of a virus, you're going to feel a few of the effects, but that's kind of how it works. Your body's getting used to fighting them, so it's going to give you a fever, you're going to cough a bit because it's doing what the body usually does to take care of the viruses that enter your body.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. But, and again, you've mentioned the financial effort by the worlds, and so I want to know, what do you guys predict? Do you guys think that we will achieve complete eradication of this, like smallpox, or like is it going to be just like every winter people just get this again and again and again, and it just becomes like
it completely comes down to like how many strains there end up being, and currently we have like I saw today a new one here in England that just apparently the only difference is it transmits more and it's more infectious. But you know, if we get a strain that is so distinctly different that the vaccine can't do anything about it, then yeah, we're probably going to need to, you know, evolve and come up with new versions. But that's easier than coming up with one, you know, brand new, because you're still dealing with just an evolved version of something. So it's easier to you know, iterate.
As of today, the vaccine is known to still combat the new strain, correct?
Yes, supposedly. This one is just, it's just more annoying for you to get it if you're unvaccinated because it's more infectious. All right. So you're probably going to give it to more people.
All right. Good stuff.
I would say because of the contagious effects of the new strain, it is worrying. So for me personally, it's understandable that the government has decided to put London and the Southeast into Tier 4. So hopefully, if you've seen the numbers, you'll see, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So hopefully that can help combat it. But again, it's very important that people follow the rules and also we get the vaccine rolled out as quick as possible. If people are getting
which again brings up the problem of just supply and demand. Like,
exactly.
If it wasn't such a, you know, worldwide issue, we'd probably get everyone vaccinated quicker because there wouldn't be as many countries gunning for the vaccines that they can get.
Right.
But because there's just so many, and we all know like the process, especially for the Pfizer one, it has to be refrigerated and always kept cold. And there's like, after you've gotten it out of a certain thing, you only have it like viable for a few days, so you can't really waste any of it. Not
even a few days. I think the ones that are not used on the day have to be disposed of immediately.
Yeah.
By the end. Yeah.
So you have to have a really efficient operation, and that's already dealing with the supply shortages that exist as is, which creates just more of a difficulty. But yeah, obviously what we want is everyone gets it, or at least enough people as quickly as possible, so that we stop the spread, because every time, you know, it jumps between a person and another person, that's another chance for a mutation and the creation of a whole new strain.
Exactly.
And naturally, sorry, go on.
That's okay. It's not just people getting it and having some, you know, don't have any symptoms. They're asymptomatic, but quite a few people do have quite severe symptoms, and unfortunately, some people die. And that's what we want to try and stop. Not only to prevent people from dying, but also to prevent the NHS from overflowing and not being able to deal with all the numbers.
Yeah, and I mean, especially, like, you could tell the NHS is under ridiculous strain right now, because I've had just horror stories myself of trying to get appointments for non-COVID related problems, and it's just been the big runaround because no one knows what's happening. Everyone's constantly overloaded, and, you know, there's no good communication right now because COVID is, you know, everything. And yeah, we need to do something about it before the NHS just flat out collapses under the weight of this.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, I see two ways that things can massively improve. And obviously one is immunization. We've talked about that in length. And the other is that, unfortunately, even though we do have a breakthrough in vaccine, we still have to obey by social distance, and we still have to use everything we have to our abilities. And, you know...
Yeah, you still have to use, like, common sense. You've always had to, though, even with other diseases. Like, what do you expect?
Common sense is absolutely key in this situation. And, you know, I do believe that immunization should be encouraged, and, you know...
Yeah, again, it's not as, like, crazy as it seems anyway, the vaccine being made so quickly. Ebola took 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was way less of a problem. It had way less funding because it was mostly, you know, in one part of the world. So companies in the US wouldn't really care as much. And the rest of the world wasn't as involved. So it being done in half the time of that because the entire world is at risk makes sense. You know, doesn't really make it that much more risky than vaccines we've already had that existed and everyone got anyway because they were necessary, like the Ebola one.
Absolutely. And thinking about encouragement, what do you guys think about this whole new trend about celebrities and politicians getting the vaccine live on TV? We had Michael Pence yesterday with his wife, and I believe it was someone correct me, the medical general of the US.
Yes, I think so.
They all got the TV, and, you know,
And
Obama,
Gandalf.
Bush, Clinton, and Biden.
Yes, and Ian McKellen.
Yeah, Ian McKellen. Gandalf is safe, boys.
Gandalf gets to come back as Gandalf the White once more.
Can you guys tell me a bit more about the impact that these may have? And,
I mean, here's the thing, right? I think the fact we even need to do this whole show and tell, like this dance on TV where famous people get it, is kind of silly. Because the people who don't believe in its effectiveness or who are skeptical, this isn't going to change their mind. Because they're going to just be like, yeah, they got given a placebo or something.
Saline solution.
Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of silly and pointless. But I guess, it does reassure the people who already were going to get it anyway. Like, oh, other people are getting it too. I'm going to get it at some point, hopefully. And yeah.
I think it depends, because if only a few people are doing it, then it's only just a novel gesture. But if you have a lot of people, like let's say about 60% of the people that are, celebs or whatever, getting it or in power, then you kind of think to yourself, oh, hold on a minute. It's like you don't want to have a feeling of missing out. You want to be like, oh, they're doing it, I want to do it as well. Which I think in a way it's a good thing. So you're right. A lot of people who are skeptics are not going to be convinced by these attempts. But I think generally speaking, sort of if you get into nudge theory, if you're getting people seeing all of these other people, from normal people like Margaret last week, who was the first ever person who got the vaccine, to Ian McKellen, let's say, who's, our beloved
national
Gandalf.
treasure.
National hero.
But if all these people are getting it, then it convinces more people, I think, that it is safe. And it is safe. And that's what we have to stress, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree that it obviously do whatever you can do to get people less anti-science and less skeptical about it, because it's literally brought the world to a halt, right? That's the big issue. It's not just people's lives are at risk, which they super are. The longer this goes on, the more everything suffers. The economy's in shambles. We're probably heading into a next recession that's going to be worse than the last as a direct result of just how badly jobs and workplaces have suffered from this, and opportunities and stuff. We know this, I think, better than anyone, because all three of us are like, graduates. We've just gotten our bachelors and we're all looking for jobs. And how has that been going for all of us this year?
Excuse you, some of us have our masters.
Okay, yes. If Ilo has a master's, he's a bit better than the two of us. As you can see, classism is alive and well.
But how much more successful have you been than Lawrence and me, Ilo?
Well, I'm here on this podcast, aren't I?
Well, there we go. We're creating jobs, guys. We're entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yeah, we're making our own industry because the industry has failed us.
I'm very glad you guys mentioned businesses and stuff like that, because my major concern is the capitalist side of things. Obviously, corporations, businesses, do you guys believe that they're going to have the power of enforcing the vaccine? Like, for example, I read an article about Ticketmaster, which is one of the biggest suppliers of tickets for like concerts and stuff. They demand that no one can go to their gifts without proof of a negative COVID test 48 hours before, or proof of vaccination. So do you guys think that maybe in the future we're going to have something like vaccination papers to be able to
I think
visit
especially
stuff?
For industries that are liable, that can get sued, that are in the line of fire if they end up causing like a mass outbreak or, in a socialized area, of course they're going to start doing this stuff. They're going to have to, because they're covering their own ass as well as, trying to help get the spread down. You don't want to be like running a gig in charge of it and then, oops, we didn't take these precautions and like 700 people are now sick and going to sue us for damages and endangering their life.
Yeah, and that's huge negligence if you have an event and it becomes a super spreader event.
Yeah, but
exactly.
Then again, you also have the people who are going to come in again and be like, well, I shouldn't have papers. It's my freedom to go to this gig.
Oh, yeah. That happened a lot with the masks. If you remember people trying to board planes and they didn't have masks on and they were protesting having to wear a mask. And basically what happened was they got removed from the plane.
Yeah, and fined, which is what do you expect? It's what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, things can go back to normal at some point, most probably, but while it's still a threat, why are you being difficult for no reason other than to, show your dominance?
Flex on people.
Assert your rights, right? Like, at the cost of maybe your own life or someone else's. It's silly.
Yeah, and I think what happened in the first lockdown, which was, very characteristic of that time, which sort of seems to be replicating, but not to the same extent, is that a lot of people became just generally kinder to everyone else. So they understood the danger, so they wanted to help out and, love their neighbor in a very kind sense, in a very generous sense, but quite a few people. And we can name a few people who are very much in power and very powerful people who did not wear the mask for a very long time, denied even that the virus was that contagious or that
only
deadly.
To be completely 180ing on it later.
Right, exactly.
Right now.
Exactly.
You do raise my next point, which obviously, as you mentioned, there's been a trend that countries with right-wing policies, I'm not going to mention the UK, but obviously America, Brazil, known countries who, for the longest time during April and March, really protested against the whole restriction things. And, do you guys think that there is a connection between
I think
the right
what
wing?
it comes from is it doesn't matter which side it is. It's greedy, power-hungry politicians that saw this as a way to win over a certain voter base by stoking the fires of paranoia.
Absolutely.
And by using what this pandemic does best, which is create fear, to their own advantage. However, what we're seeing now is it completely biting them in the ass.
Absolutely.
Because it's gone on for so long that their denialism and their stoking of that fire has only, especially in places like the US and Brazil, made it worse and made it even more disaster, of a disaster for the whole country.
I mean, even our own Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who in March bragged when he was, shaking hands with COVID patients and then ended up in the ICU. So,
I mean, that was like the quickest version of karma we've ever seen. What was it? It was like a week later is now Boris Johnson has gotten COVID and he's in the hospital. Like, yeah, okay, I saw that coming.
You've all seen the picture on Twitter in January with him being like 2 big thumbs up. This is going to be a great year for Britain. And here we are, just like...
But I think to give, we might not want to do this, but to give Boris a little bit of credit, he was gracious enough to realize how dangerous this virus was and take quite strict measures. Like, a lot of people don't like lockdown, especially people who own small businesses or who've lost their jobs or who have, they're uncertain about the places they rent and so on.
I won't say that, like some leaders, he didn't do anything at all for forever, but it's just the problem that with him and his government has been that everything they've done always comes late. Yeah. It comes after everyone else who's done it somewhat more efficiently has already done it. Like, I wish we were like New Zealand right now, where people are back out just having parties. There's like barely any transmission or pandemic, and everyone's just having a good time, getting rid of masks. But that's because they acted the absolute fastest compared to pretty much every country with their really strict measures.
That's the thing. I'm very happy with the way that financially and economically we've handled it. With the furlough scheme, it's one of the best things to ever happen. Like, it's absolutely needed.
Oh yeah, no, I think if there wasn't a furlough scheme, this would have killed the country. The economy would have been completely destroyed.
But that's just the thing. I don't hate Boris. It's just that the way he does stuff and the way that the government does stuff is quite slow. And it's just not effective.
I think it's slow and inefficient is the problem. There's clearly too many people pulling from too many sides, and they can't agree on what to actually do until it gets so bad that they're forced and railroaded into a single, path of action. And that's the biggest issue with this government.
But fortunately, they didn't get involved into any of the demagoguery of the really right-wing politicians that we've talked about who, for a long time...
It hasn't been like the denialism of some places.
And I'm glad for that. However, another special case is Sweden, who didn't have a lockdown for a very long time. And only yesterday, the king spoke out about it. And now they're starting to ask people to wear masks.
What was the actual exact quote? We have failed our country.
Right.
Which is, it's quite like grim and serious. And it really shows you, it's better to be in a country that did something at some point instead of just ending up at the point where your king has to come out, your royal monarch, and be like, we have failed our people.
So what do you boys think? I'm really not up to date right now, but are the Christmas relaxations still happening?
No, not for London. The bubbles are not happening. Okay. I'm assuming elsewhere there might be, but I'm not sure, and details might change by the time, people are listening to us.
Yeah, that's true. But so obviously it's still Christmas, it's still the holidays. We should obviously go in being very hopeful about it because New year, new beginning, right? Like this.
Yeah. Also, I want to touch on something that Joe brought up, where he's like, a lot of people. This brought out the more positive part of them, and I absolutely agree because you guys included have friends that have like made sure we're all okay, checked on each other after we haven't heard or seen each other for really long periods of time, because obviously we're all, you know, dealing with our own like isolation and depression and so on and so forth, and just everyone checking on each other has been very, you know, hopeful. It's nice. It's nice knowing everyone, you know that you expected to care actually does care and is showing it.
Absolutely. And again, it's important to not get complacent, however. Like, we need to spend the holidays with only those who are the most closest to us. And, you know...
try and keep it, it's a household, 2 households. Yeah. What was the rule? Yeah.
I can't even be bothered to check it up. But, we can handle one Christmas like this. Make sure to handle this Christmas this way so that you have plenty more Christmases to spend with those you love.
Well, yeah, that's always the motivation, handle it good now so that you get more in the future where you don't have to even think about
Absolutely.
it. Considering so many people won't have some of their loved ones with them this Christmas, I think that's really sad. So
I know for me that's the case because, usually we travel back to, Europe to see our family, but right now we can't because most countries are, flight issues or like you go there, you have to be in quarantine for the entire holidays duration. So there's no reason to even bother going to see anyone, but it also makes it like the most lonely Christmas a lot of people probably have ever experienced in our lifetime.
Exactly.
So the government absolutely made the right decision, I feel like, to approve the vaccine. And, do you guys think that... it's obviously been approved in the USA now, but how do you think that this will impact the new president, for example? What do you think is going to happen with Joe Biden's presidency?
In America, we're going to probably, with Biden, see that this is going to be his main avenue of, like, worry. He's going to try and deal with the remnants of COVID as well as he can. And because otherwise, that's his entire first term.
He made a promise saying that in his first 100 days, they can defeat COVID. Do you think that's possible?
I think that's incredibly optimistic.
Yeah.
I won't say it's stupid. I'll say if you're actually focusing on it, New Zealand, I think, did it the first time, where they got no cases in about 100 days. So if you're actually taking, proactive, making acts that are very, for that purpose, it's probably possible. It's just the country itself, from overseas seems deeply divided. And I don't know how easy it would be to keep a promise that optimistic with the circumstances as they are.
I think one way in which he could encourage people to not only help towards ending this as soon as possible in America is convincing as many people to get immunized immediately. And obviously they've started to do that now in America. But I think Biden's administration could be much more forceful in just encouraging people, persuading people to go and get the vaccine for your loved ones, for yourself, for the country. And it could be an act of patriotism, as it should be.
This is what I was going to suggest. It's the problem right now is everything's politicized. We've reached a point of absolute political polarization. And I think the best possible course is to just unpoliticize things like health and like keeping people alive.
Right.
Having like 3,000 people a day dying from something in your country, that's not politics anymore.
No.
We're doing stuff to keep these thousands of people from dying. It doesn't matter what side you're on. You should probably care about thousands of the people in your own country that your neighbors, your family, your friends who might die.
And as much as we complain about the NHS, with it being overwhelmed, you not being able to get any appointments, Lawrence, it is absolutely necessary to say that universal healthcare is a right, and it should be available to pretty much everyone who needs it.
Oh yeah, no, I think here in the UK we'd be suffering way worse if there were people who didn't have access to any healthcare at all. Absolutely. Unless they could pay insurance.
But yeah, the national healthcare is an absolute gem, and we're very grateful for everyone out there doing their best.
That's one of the reasons I want this to be taken care of, because I want to be able to see the NHS, working again without the massive load. I want to see it thriving a little better and doing, other things that they have to be handling as well. Because right now they can only focus on the one problem because they've been underfunded and, cut down for so long by the consistent governments in power. What else can they do?
Yeah, and I think we should award them with more than just claps every week.
Absolutely. I was just about to say we're not going to clap on the podcast, are we? But, you know.
I mean, it'll be absolutely insane. It'll be insane if the next government doesn't give, the NHS more, if they don't give them a bigger budget next time around after what this should be teaching us lesson-wise. It would be mind-blowing if the next government doesn't do something in their policy that is pro the NHS after how utterly instrumental it has been for this situation.
Absolutely. And I think even this parliament, even if they go ahead and raise taxes for whatever reason, the NHS will be the reason. They'll say, look, they saved you, basically. So you have to give back now.
Yeah. So, speaking of the pandemic, I was thinking we should all discuss how we've been handling the desolation and isolation and horrible state of things, and what we've been doing in our free time to even try and stay somewhat sane, stuck at home.
Yeah.
Joe, would you like to go first?
Oh boy. Well, at first, I did panic a lot. That was the first thing I did, because obviously I've never lived through a major pandemic like this. We've all lived through swine flu, but it wasn't this bad. And even then I was a bit anxious. So most of all, I was afraid for my brother who has asthma. At start, I thought him going to school wasn't a very good idea. So I was very glad when the schools were closed and they were able to learn online. But then I had to help out my dad with his business, and that was its own stressful event. And really, basically, my schedule became wake up, work, maybe play some games, obviously talk to you guys, and then go to bed again. And
like you mentioned earlier, you haven't gone out more than 5 times in months.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very depressing. It is depressing, and it has really affected my mental health. It's gotten worse than ever before, But fortunately, as you said, with good friends like yourselves and family being there for you, it becomes easier to cope with. So for the last 9 months or so, that's just generally been my life. And every month I try to fix my sleep, but then it just derails because it's a pandemic. It's a global pandemic.
It's gotten hard to keep track of time.
Exactly.
Especially it's now winter as well. So here in the UK, it gets dark at 3:30. In the afternoon, and you're like, oh, is it nighttime already?
Exactly.
So yeah, the fact that you can't even go out, it must mess your body clock so much more than just natural winter.
For sure. There have been days when I've woken up and I don't know whether it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. So that doesn't help a lot. But hopefully, I'm very optimistic. I'm in a place now where I'm a lot more optimistic for the future. I think what really gave me confidence was the fact that we developed the vaccines and they're being rolled out so quickly. I thought maybe the earliest we get them rolled out is April next year. So the fact that we're doing it now, it's just really given me a lot of
I was very much expecting a very long wait, and I thought we were going to be in it for a very long haul of having to live like this. So the hope of them finally being 95% to 90% effective and rolling out now, that's a nice little improvement.
Yeah.
And you guys pretty much mentioned everything that I have to mention.
Yeah, but you also had to contend with doing your masters, which was crazy. Talk about that.
Yeah, tell us about that, Ivilo. Tell us about that.
The masters happened, and as you guys already know, masters is a pretty independent thing already. People just leave you to do it, and then when the pandemic hits, they obviously stopped university. Actually, my university stopped it on before there was a national lockdown, so we were ahead of the curve. They just closed everything, and they just had to tell us to pretty much go and do it. And it was quite stressful for myself personally, because as Joe mentioned, I was panicking a lot. I was worried about my parents.
Yeah, and I assume you got a lot less support from the university and staff because of...
They were actually quite responsive. They were very good with transitioning learning online, but I personally didn't benefit much from it. I just sat down, got my head down, and did my work on it. Thankfully, it was pretty nice, pretty good. It was a good grade at the end, but just the whole pressure of studying and doing that, as Joe mentioned, I was pretty much in a place of delirium. I was all over the place, and I was doing my assignments. I had an assignment due on the Sunday, and I did it on the Friday and the Saturday, which was just quite the torture for myself. But it was pretty nice. It was pretty nice because at the end of the day, as you guys say, I was very hopeful that we will get a vaccine earlier rather than later. So after I finished my degree, I just made my best to stay at home And
I do have one question, and this is specifically regarding UK universities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's right that during the time period where they did this, they still charged the exact same amount from students?
That is a very tricky topic, and I don't know how to politely respond to that, because when I paid my tuition fee back in September of last year, I had no idea that this would happen. But
yeah, you didn't really know that you wouldn't even
yeah.
get to be at university for that year, more or less. Yeah,
you know, as someone who self-funded it, I was quite surprised, because I don't know, just university as a whole should not be the price it is. We can all agree on that, right? University should not be as expensive as it is. Come on.
Yeah.
So the fact that
absolutely.
Now it's a pandemic, and I know people who are literally paying $9,000 and they're in their third year or in their final year, whatever they're doing, and they're just getting taught from PowerPoints and online.
Yeah, Zoom calls and PowerPoint
like
screen shares.
I understand the frustration, but to be fair, if this is what it takes for people to realize that university is way more expensive than it should be, and if it maybe, and that's a huge maybe, if it lowers tuition fees down, then I'm all for it, because in my opinion,
yeah, I do think it's raised.
Yeah, go on.
It's raised like awareness for a lot of students of, you know, they're paying the same amount and they're at home on their laptop in Zoom and they're going, this doesn't feel like it's exactly worth the money at play.
It's been a massive reality check, hasn't it?
Yeah. Because like usually the part that I think makes a lot of students here accept the tuition fees and feel like, fine, I guess I'll cough up that money, is the fact that you can socialize with people. You have, you know, societies and clubs, and you're on campus, and you have so much that comes along with the university experience that isn't, you know, what you're paying for, which is the education itself and the paper, the degree, that you don't get that anymore now. Suddenly the price for what you're actually getting doesn't seem proportional.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, and it's just like, I faffed quite a bit with this story, boys, but it is faffing with friends. So, you know, as I'm saying, I do think that if the pandemic reduces the cost of education, I will be very happy about it, because to answer your question, I did not get my money's worth from this master's, basically.
Yeah, I assumed as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say quite a few other people share that view. Some people, I mean, one particular student that I know who didn't get as much support as they would have hoped, nor enough leniency in their grades, even though they ended up getting a pretty good grade. But considering everything else that was going on this year, and the fact that they had to rush like you did to get all your assignments in, to get all your, you know, your dissertation in, I would say overall a lot of people were not very happy with the experience. And we do have one friend currently who is doing their masters, and they've had to study online the whole time. And like you said, that's quite the experience, because you go to university.
They've had to study online, and they've also been there, like. Right. In the living accommodations, they just can't go in for lectures.
Which is crazy, by the way. Which is crazy that they have to pay even more. The most
insane, like, middle ground. You're kind of in limbo.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, you're paying for accommodations to live there, so you can get taught online while you live there.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, I really hope that the vaccine reaches university students as well, because, you know, they do need it. And I feel so sorry for everyone who is currently doing their education right now and is having to go through this, because, not gonna lie, if it was me, I probably wouldn't have handled it. And
yeah, no, it did. It made me a little thankful that I decided not to go do a master's, because I would have been doing it at the exact same time as you during all of this, and I feel like I dodged a bullet.
But then again, I was very lucky, because it happened in March, and in March I was pretty much done with it. Like, I just had to do a dissertation and 2 essays, which I know it sounds a lot, but in terms of like the grand scheme of things, it wasn't as much study as the people who had to just start the year this year at like the height of the pandemic. So it wasn't that bad, but you know, my heart goes out to all students right now. I feel your pain.
I mean, when it comes to how I've handled the year, I have pretty much done what I always do, because I'm usually very reserved and not always social and outgoing. But even I, as someone who is naturally like that most of his life, has felt this. Like, I can only play games and watch films and shows and consume media for so long before I kind of miss just having the option to go out, to see friends, to hang out with people. Because usually, I wouldn't go out often, but I would still go out and, see you guys or see someone from secondary. Or now it's all I have is the media consumption that I usually rely on when I have nothing else. And it has been very difficult because I feel like I'm almost running out of things to do or play or see. Because it's been so much time, I've just had time to go through everything in my backlogs, There's like nothing I can think of right now that I haven't at least touched or gone through a bit or, completed completely. So I'm just sitting here waiting for the chance to do anything else again, hopefully.
And to bring it back to the vaccine, I do think that the vaccine will actually increase the amount of media we have to consume because, we've all seen Tom Cruise's latest rant, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes, that rant is legendary and I love it.
And obviously with that happening next year, once the vaccine is completely rolled out and people return to life, we're going to get bombarded, boys. We're going to get bombarded with films and stuff.
That's been one thing we've experienced now. We've experienced something I don't think in our lifetime has happened, which is a drought of media.
Yes.
There's been a period of time where nothing's coming out, right? Nothing new's happening. So you suddenly have time to just do everything you had saved up and waiting, and you're actually going through the list. You're seeing the list get smaller, and you're like, this is weird. I'm not used to actually making progress. Like, the list is usually never ending. Exactly.
But yes, I do hope that with the rollout of the vaccine, media will be restored. And right now, that's another way I've been coping. As you say, you've consumed so much media, and I've actually consumed a lot of media I hadn't consumed previously, so that's a way of coping, I guess. Just consuming stuff, forgetting everything happening, just going on to a different world.
Yeah, obviously,
but
escapism.
Yes, hopefully,
good old fashioned
escapism.
It's good in a way that it keeps our minds off for some amount of time every day, off of what's going on around the world. And I've definitely been able to shrink the list. And you guys know how notorious I am about what I've not seen and what I've not read.
Joe has a list that is longer than most of us will have in our lifetime.
Fun fact, everyone, Joe has not seen a film since 2003's Return of the King.
That's not true. That's not entirely true. I mean, the joke there is that it's my favorite film. I'm not ashamed to say it. But yeah, I would say since 2005 till now, I've maybe seen 3 or 4 major movies of each year, but not much, which is bad.
Yeah, which is why his list is legendary among us, and we pretty much don't expect him to finish it.
There is actually a conspiracy theory that the pandemic happened so Joe can consume all the media he's yet to consume.
Right. Me and George R. Martin conspired to make the pandemic happen so he can finish his book and I can finally read it.
Yes.
Exactly.
There you have it, boys. On Faffing with Friends, the reason for coronavirus. Oh, gosh.
But yeah, another thing I wanted to say is once the drought is over and we have a deluge instead, I think, what do you guys think about a lot of media either having references to the pandemic and, the collective trauma that we've all been through.
Here we go.
I feel like a lot of things are going to get a new breadth of nihilistic, depressive, or hopeful even inspiration from all this that's been going down. But I also feel like a lot of them are going to handle it incredibly sloppily, and it's going to be hilariously bad how insensitively they...
Like the Michael Bay movie.
Don't even get me started.
Like the Michael Bay movie that's coming soon.
So angry with that film because I watched the trailer and the trailer depicted a couple being separated by the pandemic, and that made me feel sick to my stomach. But I do hope that it's not just all pandemic entertainment for the next few years, because I really don't want to pay for a film
forget
to
it.
go
We don't want to be
like mentally
stuck on
I
the
want to
worst
forget
period.
it. Yeah,
exactly.
But do you guys reckon we're going to I mean, obviously it's two different scenarios, but do you think we're going to treat the pandemic the same way in the media, the same way that we've treated the First and Second World War?
I don't think we will anywhere to the same degree, but because the Spanish flu happened after the Great War, and we don't really see much media of that at all, because I think it's the problem there, right? With war films, it's very easy to glorify war, patriotism, death for battle and saving your country from invaders, etc., etc. How exactly do you glorify a virus / pandemic that doesn't care and that everyone handled badly and that everyone's lost thousands of lives to, even more in some countries, hundreds of thousands? There's really few ways to make that.
You could make a film
have
about
the same
the vaccine.
effect. Yeah, you can. Yes, true. But you know what I mean? Like, you can't have the same deluge of, like, the people fighting in this battle and the people who lost their lives here and the heroic sacrifices here and how we beat back the Nazis in World War II and stuff like that. Because it's not the same emotion. It's not the same thing. Because this isn't, like, people fighting people or, like, good versus evil. This is a virus that doesn't care killed a bunch of people and you kind of experienced it. You had horrible, downgrades to your day-to-day life. Is that really what you want to make a lot of media based on?
I mean, there's only one massive pandemic film, and that's Contagion. As far as I know. Like,
I was going to mention
which got a lot of views. Yeah, you remember right as this started, Contagion was like top on every streaming service.
Yeah.
Everyone was just watching it.
Oh god, that feels like a completely different lockdown ago.
Yeah.
You guys remember the period
which
of
is
Tiger
funny.
King?
Which is fun. Exactly. I was going to say, this year, 2020, has felt like 3 years in one rather than just one whole year.
It has felt a lot longer than you'd assume. Like, we think back and it's like, holy crap, that was only like 7-8 months ago, whatever we're like remembering. It's like, I can't believe that's all that's passed. It feels like a lifetime of sitting in one's room in the dark waiting.
It's like we're in the 5th level of Inception, waiting for someone to come save us.
Yeah, please wake us up. Give us the push, the shove.
Exactly.
And that push is coming. The vaccine is coming. And it will wake us up from, to use your Nolanism, it will wake us up from from the inception we're living in.
Well, it's funny that Nolan released a movie this year and he was so adamant about releasing it, not waiting like so many other people. Would you think?
That was pretty hilarious. I mean, obviously, I feel a little bad for cinemas in the fact that they're pretty much taken the biggest hit they'll ever take during this period. Like, we might see, the industry completely change and cinemas dying off.
Yeah.
It might happen because of just how little money they've made and how probably in a massive loss they've been this year. But I don't know. I still think that was a really silly move releasing, because you knew a lot of people wouldn't take the risk to see your film. So you knew it wasn't going to be a success. You knew it wasn't going to get that many people back in the seats.
Which is a great shame.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's pretty much what it was. A great shame.
Tenet's a good film and all, but it wasn't. I love how it was hailed as this massive blockbuster, but again.
I mean, I feel like that was the industry as well, trying to like sell it, because it's hard to sell things when everyone's afraid to go outside because they might die.
Right.
You want it to seem like this massive event. This film will change how you see film and cinema. Because otherwise, a lot of people are just like what happened, aren't going to go because they're like, why would I want to die when I can stream this later?
Well, yeah, Violet, you did go, and so how was your experience of it?
Oh, Tenet was quite nice. It was a nice experience. Film wise, it was pretty good as well. But the experience was quite nice.
Was the cinema mostly empty? Was the
theater wasn't that empty? It was just me and my friends. But apart from that, we just sat on one row. We booked an entire row for ourselves, and people were sat through a row. There was a full row, an empty row, a full row, an empty row, and it was people did their best. People did their best. Obviously, I did not get COVID from going to see Tenet, but it's a dark, small room with like 30 or 20 people, and you obviously see why it's dangerous. Like
Yeah, no, it's the risk is obvious.
Yeah.
Poor cinemas, man. Poor cinemas. But at the same time, I am looking forward to getting the films released next year, and I do hope it's not just streaming, and I can still experience the whole theater cinema experience.
I mean, I am one of the crazy people who really likes stuff like Dune being released digitally, because it means I'll actually watch it right away, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Because, I've never been a fan of going to the cinema, even as the social activity when there is one. I prefer just, like, hanging out with people and socializing and, like, eating stuff and going out to, like, shopping centers. I've never seen the cinema as this great tool of socialization, because when you're in it, you don't talk to anybody. You're all watching the film and you're just quiet. And it feels like I could do that on my own while I stream these films.
Right. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I think the last time I went to the cinema was to watch Pirates of the Caribbean 5.
I can tell you what the last thing I saw at the cinemas was. It was Joker.
Oh yeah.
That was the last time I went to see a film at the cinema.
Come on, Joe. We all know it was Return of the King. Come on.
I think I was maybe 8 or 9, but that was an experience. That was like, imagine being a 9-year-old and watching this amazing movie, which went on to get 11 Oscars, guys.
Okay, Joe. Okay, but yes, again, to go back to the topic of the vaccine, let's because we're on our way to ending. So let's just say that vaccine. Are we hopeful for it? We're good with it. We're gonna get it. Correct?
Yep.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah. I think we're all. This is the closest we've gotten to hopeful in
a while.
This entire
Absolutely,
year.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks that we just found out, like, as we started this podcast, this episode, that London itself and most of England are going right back into pretty much lockdown right as Christmas rolls around. But we expected it. I don't think anyone's that surprised.
Yeah.
This was gonna happen. People weren't exactly being super careful to save Christmas this time around.
Right. And I would say the way that this year is ending is a lot better than I expected. Like, I started writing to plug my own self. My unpublished work that might never get published. But I started writing a short story about 2 years ago. And it's about this guy who's just recovered. He's basically found a cure for a medieval style pandemic. And he's in a medieval setting. And he's just discovered the cure. And he's cured everyone and everything. And then this, I don't want to say too much, but basically by the end of the story, he kind of wants to leave the world because of what it's become. And because of so many people's negligence. And that's what I was thinking the year would end as it would end on a very depressing...
dour note.
Yeah. But actually, what's happening is it's the complete opposite. And that's...
Yeah, no, it does feel like a complete switcheroo from last year, how it ended and the 2020s began. We were like, oh, well, this is terrible. Almost World War III, new pandemic.
That's right.
Fine.
I was actually one of those people who, when I was calling people to wish them New Year's on January 1st, I was like, this is going to be our year, boys. And it just did not end up being our year. But,
yeah, that sure did not work out that way.
It's okay. I do believe that the vaccine will fix us. And this is I hope this podcast and this episode in particular gives some people a feeling of hope that, we are still in very dark times, but not to sound like a cheesy politician, there is a light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
We're both
I think we all feel it. We all feel a bit of relief at the concept of just not going back to normal completely, because we all know that'll realistically take longer than a few months, but just things slowly becoming better and manageable again, the job market undestroying itself so us three can actually maybe get some work sometime would be cool.
Absolutely.
Being able to see friends and go out again will be kind of cool.
All right, so I just want to say, if we continue doing this podcast and we make an episode next December, what do you guys want to say to yourselves next December today?
Lawrence, are you still alive?
No, seriously though, what do you want to say to yourself?
Oh no, that's absolutely.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. Joe?
It would be stay hopeful and keep the faith, as Biden also likes to say, or rather, as all Catholics like to say, keep the faith. And keep the dream alive, because this is our dream, this podcast. We collectively dreamed this up.
Yes.
And we hope it does well. So hopefully we'll still be doing an episode this time next year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully if we do have jobs or not, or whatever we go on to do afterwards, we're successful and we're hopeful for an even brighter future after all of this collective fever dream is over. That's
I do think that the podcast is a sign of something cool. It's one of the things we got inspired to do because of how crap this year's been.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's a result of the pandemic, whether we wanted to be or not. It's kind of like we wanted to do something because we're losing our minds. So let's do something creative and cool where we can all participate. And there we go.
Oh my gosh, boys, we're part of the movement of the post-pandemic art. This is us now.
Art is work, dang it.
Yes.
But I was over the moon when you guys agreed to do this with me. I didn't think you would. I mean, I don't know why I didn't think you would, but I thought, oh, for good,
Oh, come on.
like there was a
Yeah,
part
no,
of
of
me.
course, I can't. I need to see my voice hanging in the Tate Modern,
Right,
this
exactly.
podcast in 100
Right,
years.
exactly.
What else am I going to do?
But you guys have no idea how happy it made me that I thought, wow, we're great friends and we're actually doing something. And hopefully a lot of people will be entertained. They'll learn things from us or not, however they want to listen to us.
Just
And,
even the fact that we're doing it is, it's something.
Yeah,
It feels
yeah.
like we're putting something out. We're doing something with our time that we'd otherwise be spending depressed at the
right.
current state of the world. It's nice. It's productive.
Honest to God,
absolutely.
if just one person listens to this and feels better about themselves and just has a good time and smiles, that's me happy.
One person ends up being me, just listening to it,
Well,
listening
know
to it
what I
on loop
mean.
and smile. I know,
what I
absolutely,
mean.
of course.
But,
Yeah.
So, final thoughts?
Hopefully we're going to be back doing this again with a different topic soon.
Yes.
And,
And the vaccine,
yeah.
I do hope that the vaccine will finally get us rid of COVID. Or if it doesn't get rid of us of COVID will be under control and perfectly manageable, and people will stop dying. Because, for the love of God, man.
It'd be like the end of Game of Thrones when Arya just jumps at the Night King.
Please don't do this. I'm trying to forget the horrors, not remember them again.
That's a different trauma entirely. We'll be talking about that at another time, I'm sure.
Yes, we shall.
Yeah, probably.
That's a great place to end it now that you've mentioned it. Look at the time.
Yeah, and I would say
about an hour.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
And I would
Anyone want to plug anything?
our social media.
media.
So if you guys go to Twitter, our Twitter is Faffing Friends.
Yeah.
Please follow us.
Faffing Friends. Come on.
At Faffing Friends, please follow us for updates and stuff and more episode releases. And then hopefully we'll tell you where else to go and get other stuff there.
Yes.
And I have two final thoughts. I am a Catholic, so I'm going to be religious at some points. May God bless our podcast. And that Mandalorian episode, I know some of you might not have seen it, but oh my goodness, Jon Favreau has done it. That guy, I love him.
What a way to end it. Catholicism and Mando.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess this is the way for today.
Absolutely.
May the force be with you all.
Oh, God.
May the force be with you.
This has been Faffing with Friends. I've been Avilo.
I'm Lawrence.
And I'm Joe.
Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.